Right, so that's made up my adapter. I didn't have a large enough diameter piece of aluminium to turn up, so I just cleaned up the surface and taken the diameter out with some insulation tape right round and round and round. When I bored out the inner, I took it out a couple of thou too far, so it was a sloppy fit on the end of the crankshaft. So again, 3 pieces of tape, and I had to cut a keyway. Whoops! Had to cut a keyway to clear the keyway on the crank. So this now is a nice fit into there, into the seal, and that's a nice sliding fit onto the crank. So the first thing to do is just make sure everything fits all right. If we insert this into here first, go from this side. If you come from the other side, you'll knock the little spring. There's a tiny little spring you can see there which holds the seal in against the shaft. So we go in from this side, gently move it around and push it down. Now in my case, I know I've got my crank keyway is off to the right hand side on the actual engine at the moment. So I've put the keyway off to the right hand side. So I'll now flick the camera around. So take the bolt out. I'm not going to put a gasket on for the moment, as this is just a trial fit. So we have our unit in there, keyway off to the right, keyway is there. So offer it up. It's quite a nice fit over the crank. There we go. So nice fit onto there. And then you can see that I'm up against the keyway there. If I rotate it, it drops in over the keyway. And then we can slide a timing cover over. I've got a bit of the insulation tape showing, so I know it's in the actual seal okay. So then we can add a couple of bolts just to hold it in position. So I'll put the top 2 in. Give them finger tight. Right, so I've got my 2 Allen bolts or cap heads in the top. I've made up a short Allen key. I'll just grind the end off so I can get in there. The other way to do, of course, would be to drill a hole so you can access through there and there. As when the pump goes on, it only seals on those locations, so this could in fact be left open. Choice is yours. So you just take these down until they're just nipped. It's always advisable before you do this to check the bolts in the holes to make sure that they do in fact hold the cover and don't bottom out in the block. Right, so top 2 are in. We can still move it backwards and forwards a bit. And then just as a reference, you screw in the ones that are actually going to hold the pump in. You can see we've still got some movement, and we'll then put the bottom 4 in. I'm not putting any washers on at the moment, so we're not going to be tightening these up yet. But obviously when we do, we will need washers, otherwise the head will disappear in the hole. So we now know they'll all do up. As you can see, we've still got a bit of movement. So where do we tighten it up? Well, if we feel underneath, we want to tighten it so that the face underneath lines up equally on both sides with the block. so we want it as level as possible. So push in on the bottom, and then you still obviously move it left and right, as I'm doing there. So you get it right, and you can nip up these top two. I say this is a dry run, no gaskets, so this is just an approximation. So I've done the top two, I'm happy with the bottom there. So washer, again when we come to do this I'll put some copper grease on the threads just to ease them in. Then just knit them, because we'll be taking this off again. We can now remove our guide. So just grab hold, slide the guide out, and we now know that when we come to put the harmonic balancer on, that's going to go on a retreat. I'll go on a retreat and fit the seal. The next part to put on now is the water pump. Now the water pump comes with a big gasket, which is the gasket that goes over there. I think it can go either way. That lines up with the waterways, and that doesn't line up with the waterways. So the gasket does go that way round. So that's a start, but we're not putting the gasket on yet. Then we have the cover. Again, the cover will only go one way. Which is that way. And again, if we offer it up to the holes, we find that it fits okay. So to put that into position there, we'll just put 3 bolts in there. Make sure the plate can be removed. And then when we come to put the water pump on, again, it will come with 2 gaskets to go between the water pump and that plate. They will only go one way. I'm going to guess this is this one, this side. That sort of lines up there. Not there. So I'm guessing that one also goes that way around. So the gasket could be trimmed a little bit in that area. So that's that one. And then the gasket over here. Ditto this one, it could be trimmed a little bit in that area. But we're not going to worry about that for the moment. Right, so I'm now going to fit the pump. So at the moment it's set on these ends so that the actual inlet is on the bottom and on the right hand side. What I'm going to do in the future, I've got no idea at the moment. Looks like I've got to fit the ones underneath. Need to slide those in first. I'll just see if the washers will fit on the underneath ones. Yeah, that's going to be a nice fit with that washer. I'll just try and do the same with the other one. Oh, that's obviously why they're elongated, I'm guessing. So you can actually put the bolt in. Right. So those are the first 2 to go in. I'll drop the others in. again, do you check first that when these bolts are in and bottomed out, well, in fact they don't bottom out, there's enough clearance there. Right, the fact they've all gone tight, I don't have any washers or gaskets. There's 1, 2, 3 gaskets to go in there. I know that's going to pull in nice and tight. So we can then knit these up. So that's going to be our water pump position. Just wrap the wires out of the way. So I can now see how this is going to drop into the chassis. I want to see how far this actually comes forward into the compartment. And I also, on the chassis, have to do a minor bit of drilling to move one of the engine mounts to make it suit this particular engine. Although AK have sorted this out for future ones. Right, I've flicked the engine over on the stand. So before I actually try any fitting into the chassis, I'm going to put the sump cover on just to protect this area. And to fit the sump cover, I bought some Milden sump bolts, or they're actually studs. So they're studs with nuts. And again, the part number is 81310 for all V8s, as they say. I prefer to use a stud arrangement again than bolts. So I'll just go ahead and fit that. But again, it will only be loosely with sort of 6 studs just to hold it in. I'm fitting an aftermarket oil pump, which we do at a later date. Sorry, this end here. And the sump I'm fitting, I think, is a Moroso one, I can't remember which, but it suits that particular pump and oil pickup pipe, which I've got floating around here somewhere. So that's the pickup pipe. If my memory serves me right, it sort of goes something like that. I can't remember now when it goes on the pump. And the strainer drops into the bottom of the sump. So this particular, I'll give you part number, is designed to match up with the particular sump that I'm using. So numbers for those will come later on. Got a bigger capacity, and it's got trap doors in it to assist with the oil flow so it doesn't stick up one side when you're cornering hard. So I'll just drop this on. Just got to remember which way around it goes. The lump goes to the front, if my memory serves me right. So we're just going to drop that on. Doesn't want to fit. Don't quite know why that doesn't want to fit. Have it around the right way, don't I? Yes. So are we actually hitting something inside, or is it just catching on the studs? I don't know. So that's can't get it off now. Right. So we just lift these studs this end. Well, that one stud anyway. Right, so we've gone down nicely now. Right, so the holes on this side of the sump, whilst they all line up, actually now may be a good idea to find out which holes need enlarging and which don't. I guess when they make or modify this sump by welding on this top part, I guess it does move around a little bit due to the heat during the welding process. I'm waffling on again while I'm putting these in. We're now going to mark up where a bit of relieving's got to be done with my Sharpie. The sump, when it arrives, is obviously not a red colour. I've painted it red to keep the theme going of the car and the engine. It's fitted with a set of 4 baffles which are bolted into the sump. Now, the last thing we want is any of that coming loose, so I'm going to remove that, clean it out thoroughly. I've now enlarged my holes slightly, so it's now a nice fit on the bottom of the block. So next thing is to remove this part. From the factory, it is lock-plated in, but let's play safe. And we've got some people plates in there. So, these flaps work. Yep. No problem on those at all. Happy with that. I'm just going to go and clean all this out now, so I'll give it a good wash. Right, let's give that a good wash. Blow out the compressed air. Just make sure there's no more action in there. So, it's got a form of scraper built into it. What I haven't checked is when the oil pumps in and the oil pickup pipes in, the fact that it goes down into that reservoir here and it doesn't touch the bottom. I'm guessing it's probably going to be alright because it's made by the same company, but we will check. Again, my Loctite 243. Right, I'm happy with that. Right, I can now I've deburred all the holes. It's nice and smooth. Again, I'm just going to drop the sump on without any gaskets, as this is a trial fit. What's nice with this sump is it comes obviously with the, I think we can see that, can we? Yeah, it comes with the drain, that's okay. It comes with a bung, so I can put an oil temperature sensor in there. And then over on the other side, we've got a location to screw a dipstick in, which again is an off-the-shelf item and will mate up with that thread. So let's now put this back on the engine. Right, so I've now got all my studs located in the block. I've used a bit of copper grease on each of them, particularly the ones that go into the aluminium. We now lower this gently over, try not to trap your fingers. Right, I'm just going to put 4 nuts on. The engine mounts have to go on each side here, and these were supplied by AK Sports Cars. They are not, they're identical, both cases. In fact, what I'll do is I'll rotate it slightly so you can see what I'm doing. Just like that. Right, you can now see the pickup point. So they are identical, as you can see. but they're offset in relation to the holes, and this is because it's offset on each side. So you can only go on one way. Obviously it can't go that way, so it must go round that way. I guess these are aftermarket standard items. I'm not sure, as it was AK that supplied them. And they will go on there. And straight away I can see that we need a bit of material removing from the engine mount in that corner there, just hitting against the block. And at the other end, they don't quite line up for the holes. The actual what's elongating slightly. So that one wants to go in that direction, or that one in that direction, which I'll just go ahead and do. Right, so we've cleaned those up. So that should be now a nice fit. And we have some bolts and some washers. Again, do a check that when you put these in, you have enough clearance so it clamps the mount before it bottoms out. Again, I'm going to add a bit of copper grease. So again, and I've done a relief. I've done some filing on the end so that it now doesn't actually hit the block. That's that one in. That one in. I don't know where I've got the yeah, once the next size up Allen key. So I can tighten these up. And what I'll do is I'll put a bar on there so I can get some nice and tight. So just going to get the bar, tighten them. I don't want to strip the thread. So it's a feel, remember you're going into a casting. The engine does sit on top of this. Certainly don't want to strip any threads. Right, that feels quite tight to me. And then we'll repeat the process on the other side. So let's see what the mount looks like on this side. Again, it can only go on one way. And we're going to have to elongate the holes again slightly, and we're going to have to do a bit of removing of material from there. That's all done. Now, again, same as before, Loctite. If you do strip a thread, then just get it heavy coiled. Right, I don't think that's going anywhere. Right, I'm now in a position, sump is on temporarily obviously, engine mounts are on permanently. The actual oil filter, I'm having a remote filter, so there'll be a block that goes on there with the pipes coming off, and possibly having an oil cooler in that line, not sure at the moment. So now in a position that I can rotate the engine back over. I'll drop the pin in.